Stop. Stop. Good early Sunday morning, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well and swell on this early Sunday morning. So I have my really good friend Apple here, and her and I are going to talk about our experiences at the school that we actually both went to, which is Perkins School for the Blind. So I went there from 2002 to 2012, and I did not like going there. The first reason why I didn't like going there is because it was too far away, or it's too far away from here, from where I live. I live 3 hours away from the school, and I just didn't like how things were run there. I didn't like how some of the staff, they were very controlling, at least some of them were, and they didn't let me do what I wanted to do, and they tried to overstep my boundaries, and especially when it came to dating. When it came to dating, I always felt like I was being watched, or we were being watched. I always felt like there was someone around. I never, like my first ever girlfriend that I had was back in 2007. I was 16, she was 19, and we dated from March of 2007 to July of 2007. And through that time, whenever we would hang out outside or inside one of the cottages, they call them cottages, they don't call them dorms there. I've always felt like either a student was lurking or a staff was lurking. Now, we were allowed to kiss, we were allowed to put our arms around each other and show affection and everything, but you know, it was just too many rules when it came to dating. So those were some of my experiences. We can of course go into more details as this video goes on, and I want to welcome you to my channel. It's great to have you on my channel, my friend.
Hi.
So would you like to talk about why don't you talk about your experiences and what you went through, and some of the things that you saw go on?
Sure. So I was a Perkins student from 2010 up until 2018. And my experiences were a little bit different, but also there were a lot of similarities. One of them being that there was always this really creepy fascination with our bodies and how much we ate, and when we ate and things like that. It was such a weird, like, there was a weird fascination with that. Like, staff would always have this weird thing about checking checking how much we're eating and regulating when we eat. And, even if, for example, like, let's say I would go and get something with my own money. I get food with my own money. Like, I wasn't allowed to just eat it whenever I wanted to. It didn't matter that I was the one that paid for it and bought it with my money. It was still restricted. And it was weird. And I will say, like, before we continue, that, like, our experiences are going to be different from what other people might say. So, like, this isn't necessarily to say, like, you shouldn't send your kid there, or if you're a kid who is thinking about going there, that you shouldn't. But just be aware of, like, what you can expect, because I guarantee you that whatever expectations you have of Perkins are going to be vastly different from how it actually is.
Yeah, I mean, everybody thinks that school is the best thing since sliced bread, but as this video goes on, you will realize that it's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of, like, there's a lot of things that I've experienced and a lot of things that I have watched other people experience during my time there that I wouldn't want. I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Right. Now, I remember as far as exercising goes, there was one time, you guys. I'm telling my as I call them, YouTuberinos, my viewers. Uh, um, there was one time where this one staff member wanted me to run on the treadmill for a minute for no reason, just because he wanted me to do it. And this happened back in 2005. And I clearly told him I had a fear of treadmills, because I do have a fear of treadmills. Um, but he didn't listen. He made me do it anyway. And see, right there, that's disrespect. That's not, that he was not respecting what I was trying to tell him, and he was not respecting what I wanted. And that's what.
Did he
Go ahead.
did he even try to like work with you on this fear that you had? Like did he even try to help you with that or try to like encourage you? Because it sounds like from the way you describe it, it honestly just sounds like he wanted you to do this for his own entertainment.
Yeah, no, he didn't. He didn't help me overcome the fear. He didn't. He just wanted me to run on it. He sped it all the way up, and I had to run on it for a minute, and it was awful.
That's just messed up.
So, guys, these are just some of the things that they do, that the staff do. Now, now, um, they also, uh, when you live, if you're a residential student there, they will want you to work out at night, uh, in the cottage, um, for however long it is. For me, they wanted me to work out for 30 minutes. They gave me the option of either going to the gym or working out in one of the cottages. And I picked the cottage because I didn't feel like going to the gym. Uh, um, and so at the end of my time there, in the cottage where I was in, the cottage is called Keller Sullivan, short for KS. They gave me the option to either work out in that cottage or go to the gym. And like I said, I chose to work out in the cottage. They had I think it might have been a bench press. You sat on it, and there was uh, a bar, or I guess you call it a bar, right? That
Yeah.
and it just slides back and forth.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, the rowing machine.
Yeah, that's what I worked out on, the rowing machine. And I didn't mind that, but I didn't like doing it. But that's what, they made us do. Yes, it is important to, I know some of you might be saying, well, it's important to stay healthy, blah, 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 blah. But when you're made to do something you don't want to do, that's, that's not, that's not good.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, it is important to work out and exercise and stay healthy and all those things. But when it's being forced upon you, it just feels like another way. It just feels like another method of controlling somebody.
Yeah.
Like using healthy eating and working out as a way to control other people. And I think the reason why I personally had a problem with being forced to work out was because of how restrictive and how like ridiculous they were about eating, and just that in combination, like being forced to work out in combination with the way that they would talk to us about our bodies and how much we ate, and making comments about what we ate and how much we ate, and trying to be heavily restrictive on that. It just felt like a demeaning thing. Like being forced to work out felt very demeaning rather than encouraging and as a way to build somebody up.
Right, and like I was telling you in text messages, I did not let them control me. And they tried. The staff tried to control me, but they couldn't do it because they knew I wouldn't put up with it, and they didn't like that.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, there's that.
They hated that. They hated, I think, it was probably like once I got to high school, like when I really started to develop a mind of my own and my own personality and my own likes and dislikes, is when they started to have a problem with me because I wasn't just mindlessly following everything they said like a drone. And
Yeah.
whenever I would speak out against anything that I didn't like, even if it was the most minor thing, and I was saying it with the utmost respect, it was always met with the same thing. They would always say stuff like, "Oh, you need to have a positive attitude. You're not being very flexible." And they would always throw around the word positive and flexible and all these kind of things as a way of, like, the way that I saw it was having a positive attitude to them meant blindly following everything they told you and not questioning it or having your own opinion.
Right. And I didn't. Going back to dating, you guys, when I dated this girl back in 2007, one time we went to one of my favorite restaurants. Uh, and instead of letting me and the girl sit together alone, the staff member who took us to the restaurant sat at the same darn table as us. So that right there is an invasion of privacy.
I agree.
What the staff member should have done or should have did was she should have sat at another table and let us eat together and have a good time together.
Yeah, like she could have sat at a table directly behind, because they did the same thing with me as well. And this was like my first ever like real date, I guess. And we went to the same restaurant actually. This we went. I think this was like in 2016, 2000, around there, when my boyfriend at the time and I went, and we had to go with a staff person because, of course, we did. We weren't allowed to go anywhere by ourselves for whatever reason. But basically, the staff member that went with us did the same thing. We couldn't have our own table. They just sat right there with us, and it was, I didn't mind that staff person going with us because, like, I liked this person. This person was really cool and super nice and understanding and, like, actually one of the better staff people there. Um, but I didn't like the fact that she sat at the exact same table with us because it felt like my boyfriend and I kind of had to filter ourselves. We couldn't be our authentic selves. We kind of had to watch our backs and watch what we said
Right.
simply because she was sitting right there. And I wouldn't have minded, like, if she had just sat at a table directly behind us so that she could still kind of do her thing and watch us or whatever the heck without, like, just being there and invading our space like that.
Right. Now, what she should have done in your case is, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, she should have dropped you guys off at the
Yeah.
restaurant, and then when you guys were done, you could have called her or whoever and said, "We're done. You can come pick us up." That's a real date.
Exactly. That's what normal kids get to do. But that didn't happen with us. And I feel like that would have been like the ideal situation.
Yeah.
But if it came down to, like, they really had to watch us because, like, they were responsible for us, she could have just sat at a table behind us.
Right.
Like, I would have been perfectly fine with that.
Now, of course, it would be a different situation if someone had a medical issue, like if someone had seizures, I'd understand. But if you're a normal, well, I mean, like, how do I, like, if you're not a person with medical issues, there's no reason why the two people should
Couldn't
not.
just have their date without being interrupted. Exactly.
Now, in my day, in my day, when I was in lower school, the way it worked was if you were independent enough, and if as long as you were cleared by your mobility instructor, they would let the person go where they wanted to go. But you had to tell them where you were going. You didn't have to tell them what time you were going to be back, but you had to tell them where you were going so they would know where you were going. That
Yeah, that's
was
understandable.
that's when I was in lower school. But guys, uh, over the last, I guess, maybe hour and a half, however long we were texting for, I have come to realize that the school has really gone downhill since I since I graduated. Now, one thing I didn't like was that they kept prolonging me leaving.
Same.
I didn't like that. Now, as I told you in text messages, I left there in March of 2012, and I came back here and I did a vocational program from March to June, and then I went back up there for the graduation, and I graduated there, for those of you who don't know, on Friday, June 15th, 2012. Um, but I didn't like how they kept saying, they kept telling my school district, oh, he can leave in February, or actually, at first it was January, then it was February, and then finally I left in March. It was like they were, I don't know why, but they were prolonging me staying there. It was dumb.
Oh yeah, they did the same thing with me. In fact, I was supposed to graduate in 2017. I was on track to graduate that year. I was perfectly able to. I had already completed all of my academic credits. I even like passed all of the state standardized testing. And so I didn't have anything like holding me back academically from graduating. But for whatever reason, they chose to keep me on another year because I don't know, maybe they didn't think I could handle graduating a year early and like being by myself or whatever the heck. I don't know what it was, but they wouldn't let me leave. And because of that, I didn't get to graduate with all of my friends. Like all of my friends, like I had like a whole like posse of people that I hung out with on a regular basis. And almost every single one of them graduated in 2017. And I was supposed to graduate right along with them, but Perkins, for whatever reason, decided not to let me do that, despite me being ready to graduate. It was just, yeah, I stayed on until November of 2018 when I eventually just left. I didn't even come back to like do the actual graduation ceremony. I just left.
Now, what I'm about to say might really infuriate you guys, and it really infuriates me. What the staff do is they take full advantage of people who are mentally challenged because they know they cannot stand up for themselves, and they know they can be controlled because they can't help it.
Exactly.
That's what they do.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I will say though, like I know like this is like such a negatively toned video. I will say that like there are definitely some good things about Perkins and there definitely are really good staff there, but there are unfortunately the majority of experiences that we have had have not been great.
No,
And
nope.
like I have seen I've watched other kids have worse experiences to me. Like there's this one kid who um I'm not saying any names or
No,
anything like
you don't have to
that,
say
but
any
there was,
names.
of course, we don't say names because we don't want to
No.
get in anybody in trouble or upset anybody or anything like that. But there was this one kid who um, had autism, and he had come all the way from California. So we knew obviously he was going to be residential and he was going to be there during the school year and things like that. He had come all the way from California and he was really close with his family. Um, so him being away from his family, being so far away, it was really difficult for him because he didn't know anybody in Massachusetts.
Right.
He didn't know anybody. It was a completely new thing for this poor kid, and he had a really difficult time adjusting because like in addition to him having autism, he also just really struggled to just like as any kid would. autism or not, any kid would struggle to adapt to a completely new environment and also not be able to have the support of their family because of them being so far away. And so I think what I found the most despicable about this whole situation with this kid was that the staff would regulate when he could and could not talk to his family, which I thought was messed up. Like, I totally get it. Obviously, you got to go to class and do your thing and study and pay attention and stuff. So you technically cannot always be on a phone talking to family or whatever. But he used to have this thing where every night when he would get back to the cottage at the end of the day, he would go to the office because he didn't have a cell phone. So he had to go to the office and use the office phone to contact his family. But it was like, I think what I found really messed up about that was that it was on like a contingency. Like there was stipulations in place.
Yeah.
So if the kid had an autistic meltdown, that would mean that he couldn't call his family that night.
Which is absolutely appalling and ridiculous and really shitty.
Yeah, it's messed up because honestly, like, if, I mean, obviously, like, when someone with autism has a meltdown, it's not because they want to be bad or they want to misbehave. They're not doing it like a lot of people, they see kids having autism meltdowns and they just think it's a tantrum. It's not. There's so many things that go into why that happens. And so he wasn't trying to misbehave or be a bad kid. He really wasn't a bad kid. But he was overstimulated, he was overwhelmed, he was stressed, and those are things that can cause that. And so when he's having a meltdown, to an outsider who doesn't know anything about autism, it looks like someone just throwing a fit and having a tantrum or whatever. But obviously, I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be, but I know that there's a lot more to it than just that. And they would use him having autistic meltdowns and punish him whenever he would have them.
Which
They would take things away from him. They would they wouldn't let him call his family, which I would think would be the biggest support, the biggest thing to comfort him.
It's like, why would they take that away? It doesn't make any sense. Well, it's about power and control. That's
Exactly. And they took that from him. And then there was this other thing that he had this thing where he loved Christmas music. And he listened to it all year. And I don't have an issue with it. I like Christmas music. I find it actually really soothing, and it's a good way to kind of escape when I'm depressed because it's like just happy. You can't be depressed when you're listening to Bing Crosby sing White Christmas.
No way.
And so this kid would always listen to Christmas music. And oftentimes, like, even when he had headphones in, he'd listen to Christmas music. So it wasn't even that it was annoying to other people. But for whatever reason, the staff decided to, like, limit how much he could listen to it. And when he could listen to it, like, they literally put, like, time limits on it. And I get it. Like, this kid, if you let him, would sit and listen to Christmas music for hours and hours on end. Like, I totally get probably the reasoning behind why there were time limits on it and stuff. Because, like, this kid, like, he wasn't very good with transitioning to different activities. But I don't like the way they went about it.
Yeah,
and I always felt bad for the poor kid.
Yeah, they definitely could have approached it a lot better, and they definitely could have handled it a lot better.
They definitely could have. And I think they should have spent a lot more time trying to figure out why he was having these meltdowns and try to help him to cope with it instead of punishing him for having them.
I mean, as I told you, I hated going there.
Oh yeah, me too.
Now, what else was there? So was the date that you went on, was that your only relationship there?
That was not, but it was the longest relationship I've ever. Well, not ever, but that was the longest relationship I was in, and that was like the only time that I've ever really gone on a date with that particular person,
Yeah.
like off campus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I dated someone before that in lower school. We dated from I think it was like June 7th, 2010. I think 2010, 2011, around there, up until 2012.
Wait a minute. I was at Perkins in 2010. I'm surprised. Well, you were in lower school. I was in secondary, so of course we didn't run into each other. But that's interesting that we both went there um, and never met. Although I understand why, because you were in lower school and I was in secondary. But well, we did go at. I didn't know this, but now I know we actually did go there at the same time.
Yeah, we were there. Like I was there pretty much around the tail end of your time there, basically.
Yeah, because in 2010 I was still in Brooks. Guys, Brooks is one of the cottages there. I was in Brooks Cottage in 2010.
Yeah, and back then Brooks was all boys,
Yes, it
and
was.
Fisher was all girls.
That's
And
right.
then
Yep.
2000, and I think it was 2015 or 16, around there, they went co-ed. So like all cottages were co-ed now.
Right.
And I feel like part of the reason for that was because there really weren't as many students as there were before.
Yeah.
So like they needed more students to fill the cottages. So like they made everything co-ed because like there literally were barely any students staying over at
Right.
that point in time.
And
So
when,
it was interesting.
and when I was there, the boys weren't allowed to hang out in Fisher. You had to hang out outside of the cottage.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was really dumb. I mean, yeah, I
Oh yeah, you
understand.
couldn't.
I understand the cottage was for girls, but still, I mean, come on.
You couldn't even step inside
Nope.
the boys' cottage. It was Brooks was still for boys while I was there up until like I said around 2015 is when they changed it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I remember like you literally could not you couldn't even walk up to the walkway like to get into the cottage without a staff member being like, "Hey, what are you doing? Where are you going?"
Mm-hmm. Yep. Nope. That's right. You're right. And I don't know why they were so. I don't know if I call it strict, but uptight about it. I mean,
They were. I never understood that. Like, I don't know. Maybe they thought like if boys and girls, got together in one cottage when they weren't supposed to. I don't know. Maybe they thought, that hormones were going to go crazy and people were going to start doing it all over the place. And it's just like, it's the most ridiculous thing. Like, I get it. We were teenagers and teenagers do dumb stuff, but like, most of us had enough common sense.
yeah. And another rule that I didn't talk about is if you were dating someone, you were not allowed to go in the person's room. So if you were a female dating a male, the female is not allowed to go in the male's room,
And
even
vice versa.
and vice versa. Now, the way I would have done it if I ran things, there was I would say, okay, the male and the female can go in each other's rooms as long as the door is open.
Is open. Yeah, I mean, honestly though, like I'm a little bit more. I think I understand the not going into each other's rooms thing because I think that was a rule in general. Like, it doesn't matter if you were dating or not. Like, you couldn't go into another student's room, and that I definitely understand. Like, I'm not even mad about that one. I think it's more of the like there was a lack of privacy. We were
Right.
always being watched.
Always. Yeah. Yep. And another thing that they shouldn't have done was like they should have let kids take showers on their own unless the kid needed help. There was no reason for them to stand there um, while you took a shower.
Did they really do that to you?
Uh huh. Yep. They
Like
did.
just standing outside the door while you showered?
No, standing outside of the shower.
That's messed up. I mean, I remember them doing that to me. They didn't do that to me a lot, but I remember there was one staff that would do that to me, and she would like literally just stand. She would sit out. She would literally park herself in a chair
Right.
and sit while I took a shower. And no, she wasn't looking at me or anything like that. So it wasn't that kind of a situation. But I didn't like that because I have PTSD from a traumatic experience involving someone, having nothing to do with Perkins, by the way, but involving someone who has abused me in a sexual manner. Way back when I was 11 years old. And so since then, I cannot deal with being naked in the presence of other people. It doesn't matter if it's a partner, like someone I'm in a relationship with, it doesn't matter. I cannot do it. And so I did not like the idea of another person being in the room with me while I was not dressed.
Right. Now,
It set off my PTSD, and I didn't like that.
when I was in lower school, it would sometimes a male would stand there, or sometimes a female would stand there.
That's even worse. Like that should not have been allowed, period. Like
I didn't.
like I get it if like a kid, like let's say like is prone to having seizures or has other medical conditions where they physically cannot shower by themselves. I get that. You want to make sure that they're safe and everything like that. But like if you're someone who doesn't have those kind of problems, there's absolutely no reason for that.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who don't know, I don't have any medical issues. I did not need to be watched while I was trying to take a damn shower.
Same. Neither do I. Like I don't have anything that would that would be cause for alarm, in that way. And for me, it didn't happen every time. Thankfully, it didn't happen every time. It just happened with that one particular person.
Well, when I was in secondary, they didn't do that, but when I was in lower school, they did it all the time.
That's just so messed up. That's
Now,
so messed
now,
up.
now with some kids in secondary who were just lazy and chose not to take a shower, the staff would in secondary stand there to make sure, like
They were actually showering.
they wouldn't go in the bathroom with the student, but they would put a chair outside of the bathroom and wait for the person to go actually take a shower, and they would sit in the chair outside of the hallway
And just listen in
until they were done taking a shower, so they could make sure that, okay, he or she,
that it was done.
they wouldn't do it with females, because this is when I was in Brooks and there were no females in Brooks when I was
Yeah.
there. But with the males, there were some guys who were
Just,
just chose not to take a shower, and
yeah.
so that's what they would do.
Yeah, I guess in that regard, I can kind of understand it, but still, like, I still think, like, sitting outside the bathroom and listening is still a bit much. Like,
Yeah.
I really think, again, that a lot of things that we're talking about, while they are, like, valid concerns, I think that the way that they would go about trying to resolve those concerns was a bit much and could have been handled differently.
What they should have done was say, hey, listen, you need to take a shower. Hygiene's important, so please go do it. That's all.
Exactly. Yeah. And if they didn't, I don't think that, like, I mean, I feel like the thing is that they would address the behavior without addressing why it was happening or even trying to figure out why it was happening.
Yeah, like why are
So
you?
I,
Why are
yeah,
you?
so
Why
I
are
think
you so
if,
lazy? Why are you not
exactly.
taking a shower? Yeah.
So I think if they had spent more time trying to figure out the root cause of why something was happening, then they would have had a better understanding of that student and how to actually deal with the problem.
Now, in terms of mobility, in my opinion, the mobility teachers should be more understanding. Like, if the person doesn't have good mobility skills, they shouldn't force them to, go in a store by themselves, or, make them do something that they can't do, because that's what they did when I was there.
I think that one too, I kind of understand, like, it's more like, I mean, what it sounds like is they were trying to assess kind of where you're at and like where they need to go from there. But if they were doing that consistently, knowing what your skill set is and where you are, then that's where I have an issue.
Yeah. Yep. like I told you about my mobility experiences, and the person who I worked with knew that, that I don't have good mobility skills, but he made me, you know, go, to very challenging places anyway.
Didn't he like put you like right in the middle of a mall and like make you walk around?
Well, not right in the middle of it. He wanted me to find the door, go inside, and walk around.
Right.
And so I had a lot of difficulty trying to find the door, and I had a lot of difficulty. Obviously, I had, I mean, he was behind me, but he wasn't saying anything. He was just letting me mindlessly walk around.
Mindlessly walk. Right. No, I understand that. That's got to be pretty frustrating and also kind of embarrassing on your end as well to kind of like be aimlessly walking around and like not knowing where you're going.
Well, I felt like an idiot, I mean, here I am in this mall, and I just felt stupid. I felt like an idiot. So instead of making me do that, he should have taken me to a smaller place like CVS or
Yeah.
Drunken.
Or what he could have done was like give you instructions of like telling you like which places you're passing and like even if he wasn't like giving you like straight up left, right, center, whatever kind of directions, he could have at least been telling you, okay, so you're walking past the Apple store and now we're heading towards the Lululemon or whatever.
Yeah.
Like he could have at least done that.
Yeah.
And then like also like maybe like said like like if you sweep your cane off a little bit more to your right, you're gonna hit a bench or you're gonna hit a pole or whatever. He could have done that. He didn't even like if he didn't want to do the left right thing because he genuinely wanted you to explore and kind of figure it out for yourself. He could have at least given you information as to where you were and what you were walking by and things like that. And what landmarks to look for.
Well, here's my question. Why would you take someone to a mall when you full well know they have spatial awareness issues and they cannot navigate big places? Why would you do that?
Yeah, that's what I don't understand. Like why would he do that, especially if he already knows that?
Yeah.
Like why wouldn't he meet you where you're at?
That's what he didn't do. So, while I was walking around in the mall, he didn't say anything. He just walked behind me and he didn't say anything. He just let me walk around.
Yeah, just kind of walked behind you. And did he like ever tell you were going to walk into anything?
No. Luckily, I had light perception then. I mean, not enough to see if I was going to walk into anything, but no, he didn't.
Did you end up ever walking into anything?
Not in the mall. Nope. We only went
to the mall. Good.
We only went to the mall once. But, if I was a mobility instructor and if I knew the student had, I'm not going to use the word poor mobility skills, but
spatial awareness issues and things like that.
I would not make the person try to learn how to cross streets or go into malls or big places. I wouldn't do it.
Oh, same. I wouldn't put them in a giant mall. Like that's the worst thing you could do to someone who is blind but also has spatial awareness problems. The worst thing you could do is put them in a giant mall and ask them to walk around. Yeah. Without giving them any guidance whatsoever. Like I would not have done that.
What they should, well, if I was a mobility instructor and if I knew the person had spatial awareness issues, I would take the person to a very small place. And I wouldn't just leave them in the store. I would walk with the person in the store and explain where everything is.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Like taking them to like a CVS.
Yeah, like a couple weeks ago, my mobility instructor came here, and we went to a grocery store, and he was right there with me. I bought a Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper is my favorite soda. I'm telling you that.
Oh, me too.
Nice. And but he was right there. He was right next to me. He was telling me, everything that was around in the store. because he knows I can't travel independently. Um, and he was telling me exactly where to go, and he was telling me, he was actually helping me, and it was fun. I enjoyed going there and trying to find what I was looking for. I was using the app called Seeing AI.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I use that app sometimes too. My mobility instructor that I had when I was at Perkins was actually really good. I can't say I can't say enough good things about this person. Like, she was super helpful. She met me where I was. But I think my problem was because of Perkins essentially being a corporation. Um, their biggest thing was liability,
Yeah.
and they were so afraid of getting sued that
Yeah.
they didn't take risks.
Right.
And for that reason, I think I suffered because I wasn't allowed to be challenged enough to where I was able to like really be put to my full potential. And
Right.
so a lot of my progress in mobility was stunted until until after I left Perkins and was receiving mobility training outside of there from a different instructor
Right.
who kind of recognized what had been happening to me and was able to correct a lot of the issues that I was having.
Right.
And I'm in a much better place now in terms of my mobility. But back then, I was so limited on what I was able to do. And the poor instructor was very limited on what she was able to teach me because of how afraid this corporation was of being sued.
Right. Now, this mobility instructor who I have here in Connecticut, he understands where I'm at, and he understands that my mobility skills are not going to change. So, and it was a fun experience. You know what I'm saying? It was a fun experience going to the grocery store, trying to find the soda I was looking for, and he was right there, and, he was helping me. So, it was a fun experience.
That's really awesome. I'm glad that you're having better experiences with mobility now. I will say, like, going back to talking about Perkins,
Yep.
like, I would say, like, what the thing that I struggle with now as a result of Perkins and my experiences with them is I have really bad social anxiety now.
Right.
Um, and I also struggle with eating.
Right. Now, the suggestion that I gave you, do you think that would help you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like try to remind myself every time I go to order something out or I go to eat something. I definitely use that, and it helps a little. But it's such a learned behavior that
Yeah.
it's so hard to break.
Right. Yeah. See, like when I was there,
Because I've been going there for about, let's see, how many years have I been going there? Almost 10 years.
wow.
So it's 10 years worth of the same repetitive thing. And
See,
it's so hard to undo 10 years of trauma,
yeah.
essentially.
Oh, it is definitely, and I mean, that's the 10 years I went there. I'm never gonna get those 10 years back. It was
Yeah.
to me, it was just for me, it was a complete waste of my school district's money, and it was a waste of my time going there.
I personally, like, if you're a parent out there and you're thinking of sending your kid to Perkins because you hear all these wonderful things about how it's a world famous school for blind people and it's got a huge success rate or whatever they like to tell you about it, really think about it. Like, really honestly, talk to other people who have actually gone there, get to know what their experiences are like, and what we're saying is probably not going to be the same thing that another person is going to tell you, but definitely talk to other people that have gone there, like, get their side of it instead of the corporate commercials and all that kind of stuff, because I guarantee you're going to have a much better understanding of what it's really like to be there. And I will say this: if your child has other disabilities other than just blindness, then yeah, it's probably a better fit. Um, but if if you or your child is just blind and no other things, just blindness, it's probably not going to be the best fit, honestly.
Now, why did you go there?
I went because I had actually told my parents that I wanted to go because I didn't know any better. I didn't know anything about it other than what other people say about it.
Right.
You know, I was under the same impression that a lot of people are,
Right.
that it was a world famous school for blind people and all this kind of stuff. And,
Right.
you know, I was going to learn a lot of things. I was going to come out of it independent and able to function and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But I was the one that actually wanted to go to school there because I was in a mainstream public school, and my mainstream public school struggled to understand me, and they flat out refused to fund a lot of the resources and things that I desperately needed on a lot of occasions. And not only that, like I was a kid who was struggling to fit in with other kids. And I didn't know a lot of other blind kids that I could easily relate to
Right.
until I started going to Perkins outreach programs. Now, as a kid, the Perkins outreach programs are actually really good, and I actually recommend them. I genuinely got enjoyment out of them. But I would say, like, I actually was taking piano lessons at Perkins before I started going there. So I was about 8 years old, and I was taking piano lessons at Perkins. And I remember walking through the main building for my piano lesson, and I remember after my piano lesson one night, I was walking. We were walking through Watertown Square. My dad and I were walking through Watertown Square, and I remember telling him, I said, like, hey, what if I went to school here? Like, maybe I'd meet other kids and I'd be able to fit in better because we all have the same thing in common. And I'd like to do that. And that's kind of where that started. Because my whole thing was I wanted to go to school with other blind kids.
And what did he say? Was he supportive of that?
Both of my parents were very supportive of it, and it wasn't until 2010 when I was finally able to go. And I remember the evaluation. I remember when I went to the evaluation and I got to meet some of the other kids there and some of the other staff, and I got to kind of sit in on a couple of classes. I remember thinking, like, something doesn't feel right.
Right.
Like, something just kind of seems off. I don't know about this.
Yeah.
But I kind of just pushed it aside as just maybe it's just me being nervous about transitioning or whatever. But yeah, there were definitely things that I noticed that just felt really weird to me.
Now, in my case, it was different because my mom wanted me to go and my dad didn't want me to go. So, and my dad's side of the family didn't want me to go. So, but yeah, that's that. And yeah. Now, the reason, in case you guys are wondering why I went there because the elementary school that I went to, they could not, they did not have the, they couldn't provide what I needed. They couldn't provide the services that I needed. So that's why I went to Perkins.
And so you went there from, you said 2002 to 2012, you said?
Correct.
Yeah, so I was there just about around the time that you were finishing your time there.
Wow.
And it's weird because I don't think we've ever like actually crossed paths and had a conversation.
No, because you were in lower school and I was in secondary.
Yep. I didn't actually go to secondary until 2013.
Ah.
So I was like a year behind you.
Gotcha. Now, did you want to talk about what you were telling me, how you pulled the parents aside and, you know,
Oh yeah. There was this one time that another kid had come in with his parents for an evaluation, similar to the one that I did, where they take you around to all the different cottages and have you sit in on classes and things like that. Um, so I was in my cottage that I was staying in at the time, and he had come in with his parents. I just happened to be kind of sitting on the couch. um it was like after lunch, so like I had some time to just kind of sit on the couch and relax or whatever, listen to Justin Bieber or whatever. Um and he and his parents came in, and his parents were talking to the staff, and the kid was kind of walking around talking to some of the other students that happened to be in the room. And I remember him coming up to me and just thinking about my experiences, a lot of them, like I haven't even, like we haven't even talked about in this video. But thinking about my experiences with Perkins, I just almost felt this weird need to like warn him and almost protect him. And so like I just kind of like pulled him aside, like just really discreetly, and I just whispered, I was like, don't do it. Like, seriously, don't do it. And I just remember his parents came up to me before, because I was heading it was like just about time for me to head back to class. And so his parents came up to me, and the staff actually introduced me to them, because like at that time I was, I guess, their unofficial spokesperson for Perkins, because I was in a lot of promotional material for them. I did a lot of videos and photo shoots and stuff for them, which the process of doing those, it was a lot of fun. But I didn't like the final product, which for reasons I'll get into a little bit later. um, but I was pretty much their promotional person, I guess, unofficially. I wasn't even getting compensated for advertising for them, which I don't like, by the way. um, but um, basically, they introduced me to the parents, and I had a conversation with them. And while the staff were within earshot, I was talking up the place. Oh yeah, it's a nice school, da 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 da, all that kind of stuff. Being like it was like a sickly sweet kind of voice I was using, almost trying to give the hint that something wasn't right. And then when the staff stepped away, I pulled the kid's mother aside, and I was like, I don't think you want to do this. Like, I'm telling you, I can't go into it right now with all the staff around, but I don't think you want to do this. Um, Unfortunately, the kid did end up going, but he ended up going after I had already left. So I have not spoken to the kid since. So I have no idea what his experiences are like, or, like if he went through the same things that we did. But um, I definitely, I at least tried to warn them.
now, what did the mother say to you when you tried to warn her?
I don't really remember, to be honest with you. I was more like, I only remember what I said to them. I don't really remember if she had a response.
Gotcha. Okay. Did you talk to the father or just the mother?
I think it was just the mother that was there with him.
Oh, okay.
Actually, no, I think his father was there too, but his father was talking to the staff. So
And
I couldn't, like, get to him in time.
and what cottage was this that you were in?
This was KS.
KS. Okay. Now, did you want to go into your experiences?
Sure. So there was one experience that I had. This was I'm trying to think when this was. But it was probably like back in 2016. Now, like, for reasons that I won't go into here, I was a foster child, and I was under like CPS protection. Basically, I was like a CPS foster child or whatever. Um, and CPS had their own like regulations and things that, that I could and couldn't do, which sucked. And I think that's part of the reason why my experiences at Perkins were so much worse. Um, because of the fact that like I was a DCF kid, and I feel like Perkins treated me very differently because of the fact that I was a DCF kid, and because they were so afraid to go against DCF. Like, they didn't want to risk potentially going against DCF, so they restricted me a lot more. Um, so there was an event going on in 2016. It was around the summer. It was like a little bit before the end of that school year, where like this Liverpool soccer team came, and like they came to do like a thing. I don't even know what it was for, but they came to do like, I guess they were doing a promotional thing with Perkins and whatever. And they came and they had their mascot with them, and they had like soccer balls and stuff, and like I guess they were playing soccer with like the beat balls or whatever. That was actually kind of fun. But the problem was, because I was a DCF kid, I wasn't allowed to be photographed until I was 18. So like I wasn't allowed to have my photo taken unless like they had given permission. I didn't even have a say in that, which I guess that's fine. Like, they want to protect me from stuff, I guess. But because of the fact that I wasn't allowed to have my photo taken, all my other friends were. So I couldn't even like be around all my other friends when they were being interviewed. I couldn't even go, like, they had like NPR there to do like radio interviews with people, and because I was a DCF kid, I couldn't even have that. I couldn't even do that. And that wasn't Perkins's fault. I don't blame Perkins for that. What I do blame them for was for the way that they handled my being upset about it. Like, I was upset because I couldn't participate fully with all my friends. They still made me go to the event. Like, I could have just not gone to the event so that it wouldn't have bothered me so much. I wouldn't have felt so left out. But no, they made me go to this event, even though I couldn't necessarily be a part of all of it. They made me go to this event and watch all my friends get interviewed and watch all my friends get their pictures taken. Well, I just sat there, and like they would always put me like off into a corner so that I wouldn't accidentally get photographed. And it was horrible because I felt so left out. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't be a part of it. And I was upset, naturally, that Perkins forced me to go to this event that I couldn't fully participate in. And their response to me when I voiced my frustration was the usual, "Oh, you're not having a very positive attitude. You can just you." And I said, like, why can't I just go back to the cottage? Like, I obviously I can't be a part of this. Like, why can't I go back to the cottage? And they're like, there's no staff there to watch you, and you need to stay here, and you need to you need to start having a positive attitude about this. And I'm like, for what? But basically, they made me feel like crap just because I was a DCF kid. And um, DCF also sucked, but there was also this other time that so we had at Perkins what's called the business office, and it's essentially like, it's kind of like a bank, where if you're working and you have money coming in, or like if your family sends you money for different things or whatever, you can like cash out by going to the business office and filling out a withdrawal slip, just like you would in the bank, basically. Um, so I actually had some on-campus jobs through Perkins, which I genuinely enjoyed doing, by the way. I worked in food service. Um, I was like doing like I worked in the food service. Like, I was preparing lunches for students and staff and things like that, and getting paid to do that. And then I also worked as a receptionist, so I worked the switchboard. Um, that was actually a lot of fun. So because of that, like, I was getting money, and my money was going to the business office, and it was all mine. I was working for it. I could have it and do what I wanted with it. Problem: I was a DCF kid, and DCF thought, and mind you, at this point, I was over the age of 18, and DCF had forced me to sign on with them, even though I technically didn't have to. But that's a whole other story for a whole other topic. But Basically, DCF took control of everything, including finances. They were so concerned about my finances and what I was using them for or whatever that they had actually contacted Perkins and told them that I am not allowed to take any of my own money out of the business office without permission from DCF.
Wow.
And I didn't know about this until one day I went into the business office to cash out a couple of bucks so I could go to the snack bar and get something from the vending machine because I was hungry as hell and didn't have any money.
Yep.
So I went to the business office and I went to fill out a slip to get my money out. And they were just about to hand me the money when another, like, I guess the head of the business office came out and told the attendant there not to give me any of my money because there hasn't been any clearance from DCF.
Wow.
That's how I found out. No one told me that until I had gone to the business office. And I remember just being so furious that DCF would go behind my back and call Perkins and tell them to withhold my money that I rightfully deserved, money that I had worked for.
Right. Well, and that's one thing that I didn't like was some of the cottage staff would keep your money.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't like that at all.
They would withhold money from you. They would withhold money that you worked for. Like, you could not have unlimited access to your money. And it was worse for me because I was a DCF kid, and DCF, for whatever reason, felt that not only could they control my social life, but they could also control my financial life as well.
That's not right at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's more of a thing on DCF's end, but I think what Perkins did was unforgivable. I honestly wish that they could have, had a meeting with my counselor and my DCF worker so that we could at least have an open conversation about it and maybe set some sort of parameters that weren't as restrictive. But no, they didn't. They just did, like DCF told them jump. All they did was say how high. There was no questioning. There was no conversation. It was just what DCF wanted, DCF was going to get, and nobody cared how much it hurt me.
Right. Wow. That's awful.
Yeah. Honestly, I think Perkins and DCF had no respect for me as a person. They just saw me as statistics.
Wow. Well, that's one thing I didn't like when I was there, that some of the cottage staff would hold on to my money for no reason.
Oh, yeah, because, like, they wanted to teach you budgeting, but how are you going to teach somebody budgeting by holding money from them?
Yeah, you can't.
That's not teaching them anything, because, like, if they don't have access to their money, how are they going to learn to manage it? Like, if you literally take that away from them, doesn't that kind of defeat the whole purpose?
Yeah. Any other experiences that? Let me ask you something.
Sure.
When I first started there, I was very homesick. Were you homesick when you first started there, or no?
When I first started, I wasn't fully residential right away. So I was a day student. I was commuting back and forth up until my senior year. But by the time my senior year had come, like, a lot of other things had changed in my personal life outside of Perkins. So it had gotten to the point where Perkins was the only place that I had to go to at night. So that's why I ended up being residential. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, no.
Yeah, I mean, it was different for me because, I lived 3 hours away from there, so, I had to be residential, so, yeah, it was very hard. I hated staying on weekends. When I first started going there, I would go home every other weekend. I wish I could have gone home every weekend, but,
Yeah.
that's That's that.
It definitely wasn't a fun experience for me. And I think honestly my biggest problems that I had with them was just the way that they approached eating. I think was like my biggest issue with them.
Well,
Like,
I didn't like how they wouldn't let you have a second portion. That was stupid.
oh yeah, they were very like, yeah, it was difficult. And like, yeah, I mean, like some kids definitely had dietary restrictions and stuff, but like for those of us who didn't have dietary restrictions, I don't think that they should have been so like uptight about the food
I
at
hated
all.
I hated that.
There was also this other thing they used to do that always drove me nuts. Was like, um, they would um they would call out the way you were eating.
Yeah. Yep.
And like it wasn't even like they weren't discreet about it. They made sure that they would yell at you across the dining room by name.
Right.
They didn't care
No.
about discretion. Honestly, I think Perkins has a problem with discretion. They don't understand. They were horrible about that.
Yeah. Now, when you went there, did you have OT or no?
I started out with it like when I was in lower school, and then a little bit when I started in secondary. But they finally realized that I didn't need to have it, so they took me out of it, which
What
I
about
appreciated.
SMI? Did you have SMI?
I did up until I think 2014 when they decided I didn't need it anymore, and now they actually just call it sensory class or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they changed the name of it. They just call it sensory now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they changed it recently. I think it was like back in 2017.
Oh, that's interesting. Did you like SMI?
I did actually. I found it to be actually really helpful. It was a good like de-stressor like during everything else that was going on. Like I genuinely enjoyed it. But when I got to secondary is when I hated it because the sensory activities that you were doing, like you couldn't just walk into the room and say, "Oh, I want the massage chair," or "Oh, I want the trampoline," or "Oh, I want to bounce on a ball." It was regulated. They controlled what you did. They didn't let you pick the sensory activity that works for you, which is the whole point of sensory, is that you pick what works for you.
Right.
They pretty much controlled what you did.
Towards the end of my time there, if there was nobody else in the room, they would let me play music and they would let me sing and they would let me do whatever I wanted to do. That was towards the end of my time there. And I
Right.
enjoyed that. It was 50 minutes of relaxation and fun.
Yeah, I really liked it back when I was in lower school because in lower school like it wasn't so restrictive. Like you could do whatever activity you wanted to do. Like granted you did kind of have to rotate between different things to kind of experience stuff, which was fine, but it wasn't so like rigid. They weren't so rigid about it. And then when you got to um secondary is when even your sensory classes were so rigid. Like there were only specific things you were allowed to do, and like you couldn't just go in and pick the thing that worked for you the last time you were there.
Right.
You had to do what the teacher wanted you to do, and that was that.
Yeah. Now, when I was there, when I was in lower school, it was really fun because it was pretty fun because there was in the SMI room there was a rocking boat and there was a ball pit, and
Oh yeah.
I don't know if they still have the orange rocking boat, but or the
I
rocking boat
think
and the ball
they
pit.
did when I was there, like at least back in 2010. I haven't seen it. Like I have, it definitely wasn't in the. We definitely didn't have it in um secondary. Not to mention the fact that the SMI room in secondary was like so small.
Yeah.
Like there was barely room for any of the really cool stuff that they had.
Yep.
Like there was barely any space.
Yeah. But the SMI room in lower school was fun. They had, at least when I was there, it was fun.
Oh yeah.
They had a ball pit and they had a rocking boat and they had a rocking chair that you could lay in and it it tipped all the way back. It wouldn't actually tip over, but it would actually go.
It would go like it would recline further. Like I remember that too. I definitely remember that. I don't think we had the ball pit
Okay.
when I was in lower school in 2010, but I would have loved that. I do remember that we did have this. I don't remember what it was called, but it was like this blow up thing. Like it was like an inflatable thing that like you could bounce on. It wasn't a bouncy castle,
Oh,
but it was like this. I don't know what it was, but it was like this giant square shaped thing, and it was maybe like I'm about 5 feet, so like it came up maybe to like my stomach, maybe like or like to my chest at the time, and like you could like kind of jump on it and you could bounce on it, lay on it, and it was this giant blow up thing. I don't remember what the name of it was.
airflow, right? Airflow.
Yeah, airflow. That's what
Yeah,
it was.
I like that thing. That thing was
I
fun.
loved that thing.
Yeah, the airflow. Yeah, they had that. They have that. They have an airflow in the gym.
Yes,
In the
we had it in the gym, the secondary gym.
yeah. Yep.
I just remember how obsessed everyone was with it. It was so fun.
Oh yeah. Nobody wanted to get off of it except when it was turned off and it would deflate.
Oh, I remember we used to love sitting on it while it was deflating.
Yeah,
Like I remember loving that.
that was always fun to do. Yeah. Yeah. And they had an airflow in Bradley Cottage in lower school.
I forgot about Bradley Cottage. Holy Bieber.
Yep.
I was like everything that when I was in lower school, like the home base was a Agnes for me. Like that's where I had lunch, and that's where like the playroom was. I do miss that playroom. That playroom was a lot of fun.
'Cause
Um,
I used to do somersaults on the airflow in Bradley Cottage.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Like I don't think I could have done that without like the fear of like bouncing completely off of it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Because it was literally like it was essentially like a bouncy castle, but without a roof and walls around it.
Right.
If you think about it.
Right. Yeah. Oh, and I also in the summer I also liked the sprinklers. Those were
Oh yeah, they had like the very mini, the miniature water park as they called it.
yeah the water yeah the water
Yeah,
park on the
it was literally just sprinklers, but they got rid of that.
oh they did
Yeah, I don't remember when, but they got rid of that a while ago.
oh man.
I know it sucked.
Although it always sucked when the time would run out and the water and it would stop. The sprinkler would stop, and then somebody would have to go turn the water on again, and then like 15 minutes later or whatever it was, it would do it again, and it's like.
You had to keep yeah.
But I think there was from what I remember, I think there was a timer where you could actually make it go without stopping. From what I remember.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the sprinklers were always fun.
I mean, like, so I guess one thing you could take away from this video is that, like, while Perkins, like, there was a lot of really bad experiences that we both have had, like, there are definitely some good things about it that, like, like everything, there are good and bad things.
Yeah. But unfortunately, there are more bad things than good things.
Oh, yeah, at least from our experiences, there have definitely been more negative than positive things. I think biggest thing is just like if that's something that you decide works for you, fine, but just be aware of like what other people are saying instead of don't just go by the advertisements.
Yeah, no.
Because what your expectations are based on the advertisements are going to be very much torn to shreds by the time the reality actually happens.
Yeah. And, if I was recommending, which I wouldn't recommend anyone to go there, but hypothetically speaking, if I was to say, yeah, or if someone said, hey, should I send my kid to this school? I would say no, and I would explain why. But if I was to hypothetically recommend the school to someone, I would say be very careful of the staff's controlling behavior.
Yeah, I would say, like check in, like be on top of, like be in tune with what your kid is telling you.
Yeah,
Like if you have a kid who is able to communicate with you verbally and is able to tell you how they're feeling and you send them there, listen to what they're telling you. Like
yeah.
be very in tune to what they're telling you,
Thank God.
and
Thank God.
also like be prepared to act on the things that your kid is telling you.
Thank God I was never stopped from calling my family. Thank God they never did that to me.
Oh, same. They never try to do that to me. Like I just feel so horrible that they did that to that one kid.
Yeah. Well, like I
As
said,
far as I can remember, he was the only kid that they did that with.
well, because they knew they could do that to him.
Yeah.
That's why they did it. They knew they could do that to him, and that's what's sad.
Yeah, I mean, there was other things that I've noticed, like with students who are nonverbal, who were always spoken to like they were infants.
Right.
They were always spoken to that way.
Right.
Like it was always it was always like, "Hello, Justin." I'm using Justin as an example because I like Justin Bieber. But it was always like, "Hello, Justin. How are you today?"
Yeah.
And it was just, and it was always, "Gentle hands, Justin. Oh, you all done, Justin? Make sure you tell us that you're all done." Like, imagine not being able to verbally communicate and not being able to, like, explain to someone that you understand what they're saying.
Right.
And every single day being spoken to that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine how nuts that must make you.
Imagine how you would feel.
Yeah, imagine how you'd feel and not be able to communicate with those people. Hey, you don't have to speak to me that way. I understand what you're saying. I just can't talk to you.
Right.
Not to mention, like, the AAC devices and things like that they would give them, like the communication devices.
Yeah.
A majority of them were, like, programmed. Like, a student couldn't, like, type what they wanted to say and say it, like, and have, like, a voice read it. A lot of the devices that they had were, like, switches where the staff can record messages for them to say.
Yeah.
So, like, even if they use the device to communicate, they could only say what the staff want them to say.
Right.
Can you imagine how terrifying that is?
I know. I know.
To only be able to say what other people want you to say?
I know. Well, unfortunately, and this is very unfortunate about the world, unfortunately, with some people, it's all about power and control, and,
And profit.
and that. Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, I think they just want the money. They don't care about the students, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that only because, like, of just how terrified they were about being sued. Like, they were so, it was always, they would throw around the word liability all the time. And it was just, for the littlest things, the most minor things.
Yep.
Like, a student wasn't allowed to use the microwave without a staff pretty much breathing down their neck.
Right.
Unless they were cleared. And the clearing process was tedious. It took forever, and you had to successfully complete the task 3 times with a staff watching you. You couldn't just do it all at once. It had to be spread over weeks.
Right. Right. Yeah. I thought
And
that
it was a pain. Like, even just, like, navigating around the campus by yourself. Like, I'm not even talking about going off campus, which I guess I can understand a little bit more, but navigating around your own school grounds,
Yeah.
you couldn't do without being cleared, without a staff person being there. You had to be followed around 24/7 by a staff person if you were going to classes. And this was worse if you were in high school and you were doing academic classes because, like, if you weren't cleared and you were at the mercy of waiting for a staff member to show up and take you to classes, even if you already knew the way, you could just go on ahead without getting in trouble,
Yeah.
which would make you late for class,
Right.
which wasn't good, especially because I had some teachers who were a little bit more strict about being on time. There was this one teacher who had a 3 strikes and you're out kind of a policy. If you were late for class 3 times, you get a detention, which is reasonable. But if the kid is not cleared and is always having to wait for a staff person to show up, and not to mention, like, a lot of the cottages were short staffed anyway, so the staff would always show up late. I you'd be late for your history class, and I don't know if you'd still get a detention or not, but it was always such a big problem with me. Like, I didn't like being late for class. I wanted to be on time, and thankfully I did manage to get cleared to go all around campus. But just the time when I wasn't was hell.
Right. I mean, I was fortunate because in secondary, they let me go, to classes on my own, to the snack bar on my own. So I was fortunate where I wasn't followed around. I was able to, go to classes on my own and the snack bar on my own.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty much, when I first went to secondary, I wasn't cleared to go anywhere until I was cleared by my mobility instructor. Eventually, I was able to go by myself, and I was cleared. I managed to get myself cleared pretty quickly to navigate campus, which I appreciate that,
Yeah.
it was a quicker process for me because I knew where I was going. I didn't need to hold anybody's arm or anything like that. So they understood that I knew where I was going and all that kind of stuff. So that was a fortunate thing. But, like, during that time when I wasn't cleared, it was absolute hell.
Right. What I didn't.
And I think the other thing that I didn't like was how strict they were about it. Like, it didn't matter that I knew where I was going. Like, let's say I had to go from my English classroom to my history classroom, and the only thing I had to do was walk to the end of the hallway.
Right.
If I walked to the end of the hallway without waiting for a staff, I would get reprimanded.
Wow.
I'm like, bro, it's just across the hallway. Like,
Yeah.
what the Justin?
Well, with me, what they didn't like was when I didn't sometimes, because back then I had enough light perception to know where I was going, and
Right.
they didn't like if I didn't use my cane to go to classes, and my thought processes was, why should I have to use my cane to go to classes if I know exactly where I am going?
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. Like, my thing was, like, I think they had a problem with you going off of their script, so to speak. Like, if you had discovered something that worked for you, that got you where you needed to go safely and in a timely fashion, and you were still able to accomplish the same task that they wanted you to do, they weren't happy if it wasn't completely facilitated by them, if it wasn't done their way.
Right. Right. I didn't tell you this, but I was born with congenital glaucoma, which means.
Same.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
I have it too.
Okay. Wow. So I was born with congenital glaucoma, and I lost the little light perception I had back in November of 2012 due to the eye disease. So when I was at Perkins, I had enough light perception to be able to see where I was going. So I didn't need, well, in my mind, well, I didn't need a cane, even though they thought that I, needed one to get to classes. I didn't need a cane to go to the snack bar. I didn't need a cane to go to classes. I didn't need a cane in the Howe building, period, because
Right.
I knew exactly where everything was, and I knew exactly where to go. Even, to walk back to the cottage, I had enough vision to see the left turn to go into Brooks Cottage.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like I don't know how somehow like I think around 2016, 2017, somehow I managed to like get away with being able to walk around campus without a cane for a while. I don't know how. Maybe it's because at that point in time, like they just sort of gave up trying to control me because I think they kind of got it in their head that like Apple's gonna do what Apple's gonna do,
Yep.
and if you try to push back and try to control it, she's just gonna like give you hell for it. But yeah, I think they eventually gave up trying to control me as much as they were.
Yeah, and that's good that they gave up. But yeah, with me, unfortunately, they never gave up um, trying. But
I mean, I'll admit, like, they definitely kept trying. They definitely, but I think, like, eventually it got to a point where it was like, do I really want to die on this hill? Like, why am I doing this for them? I think eventually they just kind of, they let certain things go that weren't a big issue to them.
Now for me, KS was a little trickier to get to because you really had to pay attention to the turns, and
Oh, yeah.
I was able to see where the door was. Where you had, I was able to, if I got close enough, I was able to, see where the door was if I got close enough to the door. So, but in terms of getting to Oliver and Brooks from the Howe building, for me that was a piece of cake.
Oh, yeah, that's like the easiest thing ever.
So my point is, in all of this, I didn't need to use a cane to go, or
To go to every single place.
Right, I didn't need.
Just like when you're like in your own home, you don't use your cane to walk around your house.
No.
It's the same type of thing, basically, is what we're saying.
So in the Howe building, I didn't need a cane. Because I knew where I was going.
Yeah, exactly.
But
and I think
they
it was just about you doing what worked for you. Like they didn't like the fact that you found something that worked for you because it wasn't facilitated by them.
Right. They insisted I use the darn cane in the Howe building, and I just thought it was really stupid.
Yeah, understandable.
So did you want to talk about your eye condition a little bit?
Yeah, so I also have congenital glaucoma. But for me, I still have some remaining vision. Particularly in my left eye. Like I can see colors and shapes, and I can look at Justin Bieber. I can look at pictures of Justin Bieber and make out like some of his facial features, but I cannot see like full details.
Right. Yeah.
And like I also can't see like from far distance. I think the farthest I can see is like 6 feet in front of me before like it gets kind of like it almost like isn't there. It doesn't even like it doesn't even get hazy. It's almost like it's not there. Like whatever I'm looking at, if it's 6 feet away from me, it's just kind of blurry and very difficult to make out.
Gotcha. Okay. So did you? This is so cool. We're finding a lot that we have in common. This is really cool.
Yeah, it is actually pretty cool.
Now, what did you have any surgeries? Because when I was little, I had in total 16 eye surgeries.
Oh yeah, same. I've had quite a few. I don't remember the exact number of surgeries I had. I don't think I had nearly as many. I think maybe like 5, probably. But I do remember, like the first one that I could actually remember was they did a cornea transplant on me when I was probably like 3.5.
Oh, wow.
And I was actually born with no vision whatsoever. And so they did a cornea transplant when I was about 3.5, and it lasted for a good month or so of like with me being able to see almost perfectly out of my left eye, and then my body rejected the transplant, and I ended up with the vision I have now.
Gotcha. Well, for me, I was born with, from what my parents told me, I was able to see out of both eyes when I was little. What happened was, in 1994, they did my right eye.
That's the year Justin Bieber was born, by the way.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
1994.
That's really cool. My parents, or sorry, the surgery. My right eye collapsed in surgery. The good news is they were able to they saved my left eye and I had usable. I had pretty good light perception for many years, but like I said a few minutes ago, I lost the little light perception that I had back in November of 2012 due to the eye disease.
Man,
But I was able to see colors. I was able to see lightning at night, only at night. I was able to see the green traffic light, only at night. I was able to see if I, looked out the window. I was able to see trees go by. When we're, if I was in a car.
oh yeah, yeah.
I was able to see cars passing by. So I had pretty good light perception, and obviously I knew if it was day or night. I knew if the sun.
Yeah, so you had some usable vision.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Do I miss it? Yeah, but I mean, I don't think about it constantly. Like, oh, I miss it, But every once in a while, I do think about like, I wish I still had. I wish.
Oh yeah, sometimes I think like I wish that I still had the vision I had when I had the initial transplant.
Yep.
But again, just like you said, like I don't think about it all the time. I mainly just like sometimes it comes up like when I'm having a particularly frustrating day and like my eyes just don't want to cooperate with me. Sometimes I think about it.
Right. Wow. So you. It seems like you have. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you have pretty good, light perception.
Yeah, I do.
Now, my mom predicted when I was little I would end up totally blind. My dad didn't think so, but well, she was right. But you know what, guys?
My vision's been pretty much my vision's been stable like this. Since the surgery like was rejected, like since my body rejected the surgery, the vision I have now has been stable pretty much the entire time.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Wow. So, so if it's cloudy, you know when it's cloudy, and if it's sunny,
Yeah.
you know when it's sunny.
It's a lot easier to navigate outside when it's cloudy because like the sun's not glaring in my eyes.
Yeah, that's how it was for me.
It's a lot easier to navigate when it's overcast because like the like sidewalk and like the grass shorelines are a lot clearer.
Yep.
And then when it's sunny out, my eyes just cannot take it because like the glare just goes right into my eyes.
Yep.
And I cannot see like if I'm facing the sun